6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right. Hey, I'm back. I'm on the YouTubes after like a couple weeks of not being there. And this is the first show I wanted to do. And I wanted to talk more about the US elections because they fascinate the hell out of me. And what better way than to discuss the US election than to gather some Americans and trap them in this StreamYard and force them to dance for me on the YouTubes. Immediately beside me, we've got Ozzy.
Right. Sorry, go on.
Immediately beside me, I got Ozian from Matters Now. Next to him, we've got Nick Suter from the In Time YouTube channel. Below me, everybody knows the amazing President Sunday.
I'm just here because they're being polite.
And next to him, we got Maya from Maya Atkinson's YouTube and her show, of course, Bad Science Sunday. So everybody, thank you so much for finding your way over here and supporting me and this channel today. So the U.S. election in the last couple of months has had some roller coaster events take place. We're about to get into the Democratic Convention next week. Before we discuss some of that Democratic Convention, did anybody here think there was no way Biden was going to drop out?
I pegged it at like 30% that it'd drop out. The problem, in my view, was he was so mentally gone. He wasn't really capable of understanding how mentally gone he was. The very tool that one would use to establish whether or not you're sane was the very tool that he had lost. So he probably thought he was doing just fine, and it was minor slip-ups and no worries. So it was really a question of, I felt if he understood the problem, he'd bail, but I didn't think anyone could really explain it to him. So I'm glad to have been incorrect about that.
I don't think I'd even regard Biden as having been really mentally gone. I think the problem is he portrays very poorly. And what I was expecting was that egos would be too much wrapped up in defending Biden's candidacy that nobody would be willing to push him enough to actually drop it. So I was just erring on the side of pessimism. It was a nice surprise when he did.
Yeah, were you crazy surprised, Ozian, when the tweet went out that Biden was dropping?
Well, I was happy. I'd been saying that since the beginning that this was like two angry old men competing to be the president of the United States. And no one wants to vote for the angry old man. And one looks like he's going down like something's going on with my audio. Hopefully it's not cutting in and out for you guys. But
you sound fine there.
Okay, good. Everything in front of me is going beep, 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 beep. But I sound good. That's fine. But yeah, well, I thought he'd just be too stubborn to drop out, but I think he had people pushing him on the sidelines and he dropped out. And after that, what happened to Trump at that rally near me, because I'm here in Pennsylvania with the shooter and stuff like that the Democrats definitely needed to do something to change the political scene. And after that debate between Trump and Biden, Biden wasn't the guy.
No.
And people were like, well, Harris isn't pulling any better. I'm like, Harris is young. Harris can change the scene. Harris is a better candidate than Biden is. The polls will change. And he dropped out. And I think that he showed leadership there. That was good leadership on Biden's part.
What about you, Maya? Did you think there was any chance he was going to even drop?
I honestly was hoping he wouldn't. Just as Ozian was saying, I didn't. My concern was that, okay, Biden drops out and then Harris, worst case scenario, there's a fight, the party crumbles, and, we have Trump. I did not expect this best case scenario of everyone just immediately rallying behind Harris. Very happy to see it. I was really dismayed at a lot of the ageist rhetoric. I've been working in retirement homes and aging communities since off and on since 2010. So I've seen normal aging, and your body deteriorates. Your hearing does, your eyesight does, your joints do, your mind does. There's normal aging, and then there's not normal aging. And I really do want to say, every time I get on stage, I really want to make sure that everybody understands that there is normal aging and there's not normal aging. And we're moving left on a lot of issues, but ageism doesn't seem to be one of them. It seems to be one of the things that is keeping really stable, like the stereotypes with that over time. And we're all going to age. And I want to make sure everybody understands, like, this affects you directly, how you're perceived as you're aging, even not with your loved ones, with your doctors, the whole thing. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page about, what is normal and not normal, because you need to know that so that you can fight for yourself, first of all. But second, I mean, he's been a way better president than he was a senator or a congressman at all. I like the economy under Biden. I thought that he was getting a really bad rap. And I'm like, well, if the ageism rhetoric can permeate the zeitgeist, why can't his record? So I did think it was very unfair, but that aside, it is what it is. And again, I am very happy to see the party coalesce under Harris. I think she's going to be a better president, because despite all of my everything I have to say about ageism and all of that, I would like to see age limits for Congress. And not because I think they're too old and demented to rule, but because they were raised at a different time. Younger people have different views about about the world that they want to live in. And I think that we should be able to define that, and not, the oldest among us.
Well,
There's a rabbit hole right there,
apologies,
President. No, it's okay. I was actually just going to address you. How do you feel about?
I'm the youngest one here. I grow a beard, and like all of a sudden, people are just like, "Dude." Sorry.
What do you think? You think there should be age limits on how long you can serve in Congress, President?
I think there should be competency tests, but I mean, people can be in decline long in advance of Biden, or can be very sharp long after his age. Trump is not a markedly different age, and he's clearly more lucid, at least on the stage. But I like what Mai was bringing up at the last bit there, because it kind of points at something interesting. Like, I think we generally recognize that there isn't a sharp correlation. I mean, there is a correlation, but there isn't a guarantee that because somebody is older, they're going to be less competent to manage things. But I think what happens, though, is because there is such a strong correlation between the age at which you are entering into politics or entering into a party, as well as just like your place in life and your personal interest as part of an age class, so to speak, because different generations have different struggles than other ones. The age line of attack is just too potent to not use. Age is what got Biden out, and he was a bad candidate. Like, it's you can't argue with those results at one level. Like, it's nasty, but I don't see how you overcome that.
You brought it up, Ozian, so I'll ask you real quick. Do you think it was the assassination attempt that got Biden to finally go, now I have to drop out? Or do you think he was already in the works to drop out after the debate?
Oh, I think it was poor debate performance too. So you can say it's his age and the debate performance he had. I mean, he tried to recover after the NATO meeting, but he just doubled down on that. And he's always had this foot and mouth problem, even when he was younger. It's not like a new thing for Biden. And I do agree with this ageism thing, but I don't think just because you're younger, you're going to understand problems better for younger people. I don't agree with that at all. I think you can learn, and you just got to spend time with younger people to learn about the problems with younger people. But the problems with Biden was, I do think he was a little bit out of touch. He was talking there when they talk about the problems with inflation and stuff like that. It sounds like he's totally out of touch with people in the middle class and poverty people, the way they talk about food prices and stuff like that. They don't understand. I'm not saying Trump understands it any better.
The Tic Tac analogy comes to mind right away if anybody saw that.
when you had 8% inflation year to year, and I mean, yes, it improved. Like in July, I think the year to year inflation was 3% or 3.1%, which is normal inflation rates. We expect a healthy inflation to show a healthy economies between 2 to 3%. That's sort of what we want. That shows our economy in the United States is growing, our money supply is good, business and corporations are growing. Hopefully not corporatism, but the economy's growing. But I think that debate performance, the attacks on Biden was not helping him. Biden has been trailing in the polls in the battleground states since I think last November. So, and none of this other stuff helped. And then the assassination attempt on Trump, all that coalescing into Biden was not a good candidate in 2020. And he's not a good candidate in 2024. There are better Democratic candidates. The Democrats coalesce around people that have this certain personality. I think Obama used to be, they coalesced around younger candidates. I don't know what happened, like an Obama, but like Biden, like, come on. Like Kamala Harris I'm not a Democrat either. I don't support the Democrats. I would have maybe voted for Biden if it was Biden versus Trump. But now that Harris is leading in the polls, she still has some work to do in the battleground states. I think she'll get a bump in the polls with the convention. Now I can go back and vote for the Libertarian Chase Oliver. So I'll vote for him.
Okay, I had a great question on deck, but I think Ozian just lit a small flame. Anyone got fuel for it?
I do. What kind of chair is that? That looks amazing.
It's a random chair I bought on Amazon. I could link it to you.
Please do.
It actually broke. The other one is right over there, and they sent me a brand new chair because the little motor mechanism.
Wow, that is fascinating.
So
not
if I
to
give
cut
you
you
my
off,
address, you can
but
just have the spare one, right? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
would like to say something here.
Yeah.
I think we need all hands on deck. What we are seeing is Trump saying that I don't even need your votes. What we're seeing is a lot of red states and swing states manipulate their legislature so that not necessarily all votes are being counted. We have the Texas governor 4 years ago bragging that that's exactly what he did. And it is going to come to a point where, especially in Pennsylvania, you can't just win. You have to overwin because, in Georgia, I believe he won by 12,000 votes. If that had been 1,200, Georgia would be red. We really need everybody to show up and show out. Yeah.
It's the because it's the districts. I mean, Hillary won by a significant number of votes, but she lost the wrong districts, and that's why it doesn't matter the fact that she actually won the popular vote. It doesn't matter. She lost in certain districts, and by only a couple hundred votes. A couple of hundred votes switched the entire thing. That's it. I mean, if you'd like, I can keep talking. I mean, believe me, and Maya will tell you, I can go on for
hours. Yeah,
quite easily. But well, I decided I was going to try to be polite.
I'm a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party. I've always voted Libertarian. The only problem I saw between the two, I think Harris can. I would rather the Libertarian win over Harris or Trump. And there might be people here that disagree with that, I'm sure. But
what does that look like?
The Libertarian candidate?
Yeah. What does that look like if he wins?
We get people that supported liberty and freedom for minority groups, for the government, less bureaucracy,
Why do you believe
Less
that?
money spent on military endeavors overseas, opener borders, more liberty for people to come across borders and stuff like that. Like neither the Democrats or Republicans support open borders.
No, I get that. My concern is that we need someone. The president wields influence. He doesn't actually create laws, and so. And don't get me wrong. Before Trump entered the race, I always voted like if there was green or libertarian on the ticket, I was always voting for them because I wanted more diversity on the ticket. But for the president, all right, the president wields influence. All he does is sign bills, which means that he has to partner with either the right or the left. So we really need to get more people in the House and Senate that are either green or libertarian before we could actually get a president there. I'm worried about a lame duck where nobody in Congress is willing to work with him on anything because he's not their party. Or my concern with the libertarian president is that he caucuses with the Republicans, and then we're in the same boat that we are in now. Have you considered that at all?
Yeah, I've considered it. So the Libertarian candidate, Chase Oliver, isn't appreciated by the Republicans. He actually stubbed his nose at Donald Trump at the convention. It was sort of funny.
I
They
watched.
boot. Yeah. But so they'd have to make coalitions between the Democrats and Republicans to get any bills to pass. They might not get any bills to pass, and he might not ever win the nomination, but it helps to keep them on the ballots across the 50 states if they get a certain percentage of the votes in each state. And that's really why I continue to vote for the Libertarian candidate, hoping that maybe at some point we'll get ranked choice voting or something like that, where people will finally realize. This election is also evidence that we don't need primaries. We don't need primaries. Get the primaries out of this political process entirely. They're not part of the constitutional process at all. They're party processes that some reason we decided to embed in the state process entirely. But obviously we don't need it, right? The Democrats don't need it. Why did we waste all that time and money to select a Democratic candidate for president
For the boost.
when we decided to toss it?
For the
Marketing.
boost, because just as you had said, Kamala's going to get a bounce. She's going to get at least not at least, but probably roughly a 4-point bounce just from the
Convention.
convention alone. But I'm going to suggest it's worse than Maya said. I mean, I think she's got a point, but I think it's actually worse than that. So, I mean, we got a question of course, one's ideals and who one wants to vote for versus the lesser of two evils, and that's a problem we all face at various times and seems to come up every 4 years in this country. I think the United States is headed for a civil war and or some form of general failure over debt or over any number of reasons. And the reason is because we can only be a two-party country. The reason we can only be a two-party country is because we have one of the three branches of government, which is a winner-take-all, and that is the executive branch. Now, that actually was not intended to be that way. The vice president was supposed to go to the second place, and that was in part designed to prevent a winner-take-all system. That had its own serious problems, not the least of which is you now had an incentive. If you were the losing party, you had an incentive to assassinate the guy who won, because that would put your guy in place. It had a lot of other problems, including vice presidents undermining the presidency. But it was finally decided that they would therefore be on the same ticket. Now you had a branch of government which is winner take all. There is no second place. So all the smaller parties that had zero chance of winning, including it's going to be Democrat or Republican. It doesn't matter who else you vote for. It's going to be one of those two. It's going to be, and everybody knows it. So the question is, the smaller parties are like, whose values are closest to ours? And then they join that party. That party gets a little bigger, and then eventually all the parties get eaten up until you've got two. And then those two also start to work on the other branches, including Congress. So might as well just project out into Congress and try and get up as many of those seats. The problem is less there because it's not quite winner take all. It's still winner take all per election, but you can get independents and so on and so forth. There are two alternatives. Well, there's really one alternative. You have to either find a way to get a third party. You cannot do that. All third parties will be swallowed up because they cannot win. They have nothing to negotiate with. That's it, period, end of discussion. So when they say you're throwing your vote away, there is unfortunately some truth to that. But you're right. If we don't change the system, because right now the system, the people who are most likely to win are the ones who are willing to risk the most. So we have a system that is nothing but what is it when they're like playing a game of chicken? It's like whoever is willing to do the most destructive acts and willing to make the most promises that they're not going to keep, those are the ones that are going to get into office. How do you fix it? The only way I'm aware of is ranked choice. So until this entire country is on ranked choice, we've got the problem of you just have to pick the lesser of two evils. And does voting for the independent candidate and getting enough change that? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how we get ranked choice, but I think if we don't, it's going to be scorched earth, Republican versus Democrat, until the country eventually collapses. I mean, we are more divided than we've been at any time since the Civil War. And, Americans, it used to be better dead than red, and now it's like better dead than blue. And it's like, it's really gotten contentious out there. And I think, anyways, that's my view, is it's ranked choice or eventually, the country fails. I don't think a country can. Now, Sunday would know a great deal more about this than I, but I do not think that a country can survive on only two parties for an extended period of time.
I think it'd probably survive on that indefinitely. I don't see any particular reason why any of this would fall apart now. Like it's like it's stressful for everybody involved. But I mean, unless there is some kind of catastrophe on a level of COVID that we are just arrested from and not able to address in a timely fashion, which, I mean, to be fair, did basically happen. I don't see any intrinsic, like, country undermining contradiction in that system. It just sucks. By the way, did we lose Maya or what happened there?
So if anyone who is in the region that a lot of us are currently in right now, like Maya, Ozzy, and myself, we've got some severe weather going on around us.
West Coast by chance?
Yeah, and I'm seeing it too. So
yeah,
East Coast. We're about to get a
losing
massive
intermittent,
thunderstorm tonight here.
Yeah, central.
Yeah,
even,
I'm
I
on
guess it depends
UPS. I think that's what was going on. All my shit was going off and on, but I was on the UPS, so it kept.
Anyways,
going.
I got a DM from her. She's gonna come back as first opportunity she gets. So no worries there. But so let's rewind a little bit now. I was going to ask the question because I found it interesting and I kind of noticed it. Is it an accident that Trump declared him dropping out of the race like the same weekend that the Republican convention ended? Like, I think Biden knew he was going to drop out a week beforehand and went, we'll wait till they're done their convention and then we'll just drop the bomb on them.
I mean, my general assumption is going to be is that if I feel like I could predict something, then probably somebody who's deeply embedded in one of the contending parties is going to know more than me. So I mean, it looked to me like it would be very affronting if Biden kept his position, and I'm watching this from Canada with only half interest. So, I mean, I think it was luck. It's like calling that it might be rainy tomorrow.
Okay, what do you
we
think,
knew
Leslie?
three days in advance. We had it in our Discord that he was going to drop on that Sunday, and we already knew, and we had the show actually already up and running. And I was actually in the middle of an interview with another program, and Titan said it just happened, so we had to bail and switch over. But we were actually already prepared, so we knew 3 days in advance that he was going to drop, and we knew that it was going to be on that Sunday. We just didn't know when.
Oh, okay.
So, and we got that from an insider. So I can't tell you if 6 days in advance anybody knew. 6 days in advance. I didn't think he was going to, and then we got a source that I know to be reliable, and I said, yeah, he's already written the letter. They're talking inside, and they're going to make it as seamless as possible. It's going to be on Sunday. And I was just like, okay, it's going to be on Sunday. So that was 3 days in advance. So I know for a fact that 3 days in advance he had already decided. Which also means, because on that day that I found out, he said, I'm not dropping out. I was just like, yes, you are. I know you're lying.
I mean, I feel bad saying this just because we just had a really lucid point about ageism being said, but like, frankly, like the ages people are operating at, if you had called, hey, I don't think one of these people is going to make it to the election. I mean, like that's not like a crazy bet to make. We're talking about people who are extremely stressed and very old.
Yeah, and I mean
that was mentioned more than once. I mean, I've heard that too, that one or both may not, and Trump. You have to ask yourself, how healthy is Trump? And he looks reasonably healthy for his age.
I am so sorry.
And does he really eat the food that he says he eats and appears to eat? If the answer is yes, I have no idea how he does it. If the answer is no, or the answer is they're hiding something, I mean, I've got no idea. Biden, that was the same. People were banting that around a lot as a question is, could either of these candidates, how would either of these candidates hold up under the stress of an actual campaign and going, from city to city every day for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I think the average life expectancy of somebody 78 years old today is like 90. So they still have a few years. I'm average, so the last
the average in the U.S. has dropped to, it was 84. I think it's now down to 79, but I could be wrong.
No, I mean somebody who's already 78. So somebody who's already 78,
yeah.
Their average life expectancy will be like 90. So it's something
and life
like
expectancy for presidents alone is generally higher too, isn't it?
Better health care.
What if they're
for the
orange
rich,
in
yeah.
hue? Does that change anything, or is that just asking
What
for
is
a friend?
that?
What if they are orange in hue? Just asking for a friend.
I don't think fake tans change your life expectancy too much. I don't know. Maybe somebody else knows.
Well,
But they
if
both do
I was
fake
cautiously
tans.
optimistic.
if McConnell is any indication, evil never dies.
That was the Lewis Black joke. I love that one. He's just like,
But-
have you ever noticed that it's the assholes who live forever? Said, so
I mean,
if you really
McConnell
want
is very clearly in the later stages of deep one transformation. So
I did have a debate scheduled between one of my friends, Dave DB. He's working on a doctorate in human rights, and Aaron Raw on if Joe Biden should drop out of the election for that Sunday. And then Aaron Raw emails me like 4 days before. No, I think Joe Biden's going to drop out, so I don't want to do that debate anymore. Okay, thank you.
So Biden's out, in comes Harris, and the funding comes flooding in. How much of that do you think is because Harris is in fact a great choice to be president, and how much of it is just like anybody would have been better than Biden, and it's just the excitement of a last-minute substitution?
probably both. It's not Biden, and it's someone who's not a unrecognizable train wreck of a human being who, if there was any serious dirt on her, hasn't popped up yet. So that's.
I think all the serious dirt is on the left. On the right, they just keep. I don't know. It's weird. They're making.
You don't
up
think
stuff.
Kamala's laugh is at all like reputable dirt?
Did you hear she's black? Maybe she turned.
I heard it
black.
was sudden. I heard the blackness was sudden, even.
Their most their big dirt. Their big dirt. Their big dirt on the right is that as Attorney General and as DA, she put people in jail. I'm like, but that's what the right always brags about doing. I'm like, wait,
No, and that's what the
and
left
I'm
was
against
pissed off
that
about.
as a libertarian. I'm like, she put nonviolent offenders in prison. Yeah, that's a negative for me. But whatever.
Well, in some cases, she also, I mean, I don't know all the details, but in some cases, she may or may not have had a choice. I mean, if your job is to prosecute and your job isn't to sentence, by the way. So if if the law is
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, you're supposed to prosecute people who violate the law. So, if she's the prosecutor, she didn't put anybody in jail. A jury put people in jail, and or a judge put people in jail. Just
She has
minor technicality.
prosecutorial discretion. So on some
Yeah.
charges, she has the discretion whether to proceed with the prosecution or not. So,
But
uh,
if she proceeded and they were found guilty, then either they were it was they just had a judge deciding it, which is rare, but the
bench
person could
trial.
forego a jury, and yeah, they could. Thank you. That was exactly the word I was looking for. So if it was a bench trial, a judge was convinced that they were guilty, or 6 and or 12 people thought they were guilty. So she may have that discretion, and she probably screwed it up because we all make mistakes. But if a jury then on top of it decided that this should happen, it, she has to share, I guess, some of the blame because she was given that
Yeah.
discretion to use it. But on the flip side, you can't sit there and say she put them away. She didn't. She made a case. Apparently, the case was strong enough that a jury bought it, and the judge didn't see anything wrong enough to either vacate or move forward. So, I think that there's vulnerability there. I have no doubt that she made some bad choices and bad calls, but again, I don't think it goes that far. You know what I mean?
Justin, I saw a comment. Do you mind if I reply to it very quickly?
Absolutely. By all
Yeah, so
means.
somebody was saying that even Trump is showing signs of age-related dementia or early signs, I guess. I really don't like the not to harp too much on the ageism thing, but I really am annoyed when people try to make psychological diagnoses of people on the basis of their performance on stage. These symptoms of these signs of age-related dementia that you're seeing. I stream for a job, so I talk a lot of the time to people about stuff live, and if I'm really tired, my ability to do so is massively impeded, and like thinking and reasoning competently and being able to do your job competently behind the scenes, very different skill set from traveling a continent and giving speeches in real time, often without a clear map of what you're actually going to say if people in the audience ask you questions you're not prepared for. I think what was alarming about Biden is because he was answering questions that he was prepared for, and he wasn't able to finish his thoughts. So it's like, it's not necessarily that is this guy like incompetent to be president. It's like, is this guy going to completely break faith in the administration? And also, what the hell does negotiating with this person look like? Stuff like that. Um, I feel like these armchair diagnoses are really really annoying, just because we flat out don't know what these people are actually like. And a good general rule of thumb, if you think you're smarter than these people, you probably, even if they portray really really dimly in a lot of ways, you probably aren't in a lot of ways you haven't realized.
I can even pile onto that too, and tell you that as someone who's been in entertainment for a very long time, I'm very much used to a stage and a large audience. Uh, when you put someone like Trump on a stage, he's coming from entertainment. He doesn't even need to be cognitive of what he's doing to still perform and do his routine that he's been doing for like a decade. You know what I mean? It's all pre-programmed. It's repetition. You wouldn't even be able to technically tell, in my opinion, if he was having a cognitive problem because he's
Well,
up
it's
there.
also his voice. Like, he's got that Patrick Stewart thing going on where he's there, but he sounds like
Yeah.
this, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah. So Trump is like a fish in water on a stage, where he's an administrator. He's a government guy. Sure, he does a lot of speeches and things like that, but a speech is generally written. He's just practiced in reading a teleprompter. As soon as you put him in a debate, like President Sunday mentioned, give the man a chance to think about a good answer, perhaps, or whatever. So yeah, just concluding based on age as your only metric that these gentlemen are, lost their faculties isn't really fair.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people haven't had a lot of, thankfully, haven't had a lot of interactions with people with dementia. It's very frustrating to try on, even if you have had a loved one who's had an experience with it's different being a caretaker. When we're seeing just early onset dementia, if you lose your train of thought and then you pick it back up, that's not dementia. When we're looking at dementia patients, they're forgetting things, that routine things, or how to get to and from somewhere that they've been going to routinely. They get easily frustrated, angered. They'll do things like, I remember when my grandmother, very early onset, she would make a pot of coffee, put it in the freezer, and then just forget about it. Just these very basic things that I'm not. It's really, and a lot of it is really difficult to say if you don't know the person just from seeing them on a debate stage that this is cognitive decline. Being over 40, I can tell you, there's just every stream I'm forgetting like really basic things.
Like
And a
call
lot
to
of it's
actions,
just,
which
yeah.
everybody should hit like and subscribe. And
Yeah,
But you're
I was in a panel Monday, and I totally forgot the name for a mandate for leadership. Somebody in the chat had to remind me, and it not it's not early onset dementia. I worked a 10-hour day, and I went out to a panel, and I mean, it could have been cherry picked to look very bad for me, but I, I agree with Sunday. We need to stop with the armchair diagnoses, and not to blast anybody in the chat. Like, I've seen most Americans doing this.
That being said, confusing Zelensky and Putin is a
It's
mistake.
embarrassing. And
Yeah.
then Trump and Harris. But can we go back to Harris? Because that's what the question was originally too. But
Certainly.
I did like the
I'm in full
armchair
support of
psychology.
rabbit holes, Ozian. I'm fine with going back.
I do
Just
want to
saying.
say something about Harris. So, but I think, and people want to dismiss this, but okay. For Harris is a vibrant, attractive woman who is the presumptive Democratic nominee, which means she's automatically going to get over 40% of the vote. So people are going over 45% of the vote automatically, right? In this electorate, that people are going to seriously look at her. She's been the vice president for 4 years. People want to talk about her laugh. Some people find laughs like that to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Hey, how
Infectious?
dementia? I can't. What's that?
Infectious?
Yeah, well, not infectious, but the word like where people have quirks that they find cool, not
Oh,
cool, but
okay.
they
I don't think
it
her
doesn't
laugh
matter.
is unusual at all. I don't get it.
Well, there's nothing to get. They're trying, and they were
Right.
told that they
They're
couldn't
just
be
get
racist.
against the wall.
So, you know,
Yeah, it's where people find laughs like that to be like where they have a loved one or something like that that has like some
endearing.
quirk. Endearing. Endearing. Thank
Right.
you, Maya.
Oh,
I get on tangents too.
no, we Hawk
Endearing.
and
Yeah.
and Aunt Jerry both called it. So,
Yeah, so some people can find laughs like that to be really annoying and grating. Some people can find them to be endearing. Everybody's gonna have personality traits that people don't like. It's ridiculous to point at that to say this makes them unqualified. She does interviews and speeches where she's a lawyer. By golly, she's educated. She's highly intelligent.
Can we refrain
To
from
say she's
language
not
like
is
by golly?
ridiculous. Well,
Yeah, but
I was going to say by God, but I know
how
we're
are you
all.
going to
Well, I know some of us are atheists, so some people get offended by that.
how are
Sorry,
you gonna
Pussy.
lead the free world in a war, say, if you have a weak laugh? Like that's kind of like 50% of the battle, isn't it?
It's a laugh. Yeah, right.
Well,
You appoint generals that know what they're doing is what you do.
Well, that segues into a fun topic there now. So the most recent things I've been seeing out there on the news is Trump and Vance seem to be looking for dirt. They want to get in the mud and do some mudslinging. And even his own party members are like, dude, you got to start addressing the issues, because that's what Kamala and Walz are doing. They're really just addressing the issues. Do you think if Trump starts addressing more of the issues, it can put him a little bit back on track?
Maybe if he lies about what his issues are.
Well, I think that goes without saying, Maya. I don't think he's gonna tell the truth. He's just whatever he says. It's a toss up as to whether or not he means it at the actual moment he says it, and even if he means it, as to whether or not he's actually going to mean it tomorrow. So, I think he just knows what people want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
When he's telling coal miners you're going to get your jobs back, I don't think he even thinks he's lying. He just doesn't really care either way. He doesn't know enough about the problem to understand that they're not coming back. He knows they're upset about it, so he can say that. I think he can probably help himself a little bit if he does that, but I'm curious. He seemed really scared when he did his impromptu. It just looked to me like when he did his impromptu speech, and I'm wondering if speaking of dementia, I think we've all inherited this dementia that's just sort of like circling around. I think when he doesn't know what to do, and I think that so much has changed on him so quickly, when he doesn't know what to do, he goes straight into attack mode, and he goes straight into, well, that's ugly. Oh, she's too ugly. I'd never, I'm not going to use the word because I don't know if you, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about when he said, oh, I wouldn't have assaulted. Is too weak for what he was being accused of at the time. I wouldn't have done it to her because she's too ugly. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's just attack. And then when he's entrenched for the long haul, or when he's in front of a large crowd, he can, quote, talk about the issues in a way that a number of people find appealing. So I think he's right now just trying to get his bearings back and figure out, that's the whole, he's got to find a nickname for her. That's part one. And then part two, he's got to, figure out what he can, actively mock, and what's the lock her up phrase that he's got for her. And he's just starting that process all over again. I think he needs to find his bearings again. Then he may start doing that.
I appreciate that you designed your room to match your dog.
Thank you.
Trump thinks climate change is about clean water and clean air. Trump
and clean coal
doesn't understand the issues. Trump, when he's asked about the issues, doesn't have answers for the issues. He has this, I don't know if he knows the issues. It's like he understands the mean version of every issue. Like,
I find that Trump's main argument points is to make up his own stats, to compare them to the person he's running against. And since he doesn't have stats for Harris, except for him using words like border czar and complaining about things she did at the border, he doesn't have a whole lot of things to lie about because she doesn't have a presidential track record.
No, my favorite is this past week, they've been lying, saying that she's going to open the borders and give money to everybody, and all this stuff, and it's kind of bumming people out because it's just I wish you were that cool.
Yeah, open the borders and give UBI to everybody.
Yeah.
Or negative taxes to everybody.
Or I think the other one, it has something to do with healthcare, something they were railing about. I'm on Twitter too much, but they really, what we would consider to be base takes, which is their worst nightmare.
Well, I think Trump is a lot easier to understand if you realize that he's a salesman. He's really, that's his background. That's what he does. That's what he knows best. He's a salesman. Somebody put up, I think I was watching John Oliver, and he put up a thing of Trump selling Trump steaks. He's like, yeah, he's pointing to the steaks, and you realize that, he knows how to put on that smile. Again, it's the performance, and he's just a salesman, and all you have to do is tell him, what are you selling today? Well, we're selling the economy, we're selling the jobs, we're selling the whatever. He doesn't need to know what the reality is behind it. He's sort of the I don't want to slam used car salesman, but he's sort of the epitome of that kind of
Yeah.
iconic.
All right. Well, yeah, and this is a different kind
All
of
right, so if you guys are used car salesmen and you have something to say, you go over to Nick Suter's channel and you let him know.
I know it. We're gonna
Yeah,
get brigaded, and
you're
it's
about
just
to
gonna
be
be a
canceled
whole.
by used
Yeah.
car salesmen.
Um,
So let's switch gears a little bit. Walz and Vance. I mean, I heard that Vance was like Trump didn't care. He could just pick anybody he wanted, and he was going to run away win with it. And then when the dropout happened, and now with Walz coming in, the joke I heard on the Daily Show, for instance, I think is fantastic, is that Kamala has chosen her Infinity Stone, Tim Walz, and now this thing's on lockdown. Do you guys agree, disagree? What do you think?
I think Walz brings more energy to her campaign, to the debates and speeches and stuff like that. I don't even know where he stands on most of the issues. I haven't really paid attention to where he's coming from. I know a lot of the complaints people are throwing at him, which a lot of the positions I see are more liberty-minded positions when it comes to social issues, which I sort of support. So I don't have a problem with that. Where the other guy just seems to be more negative and campaigning more negatively. So what I see right now is he brings energy to her campaign as an older dude to her campaign. I wish she had chose somebody younger. It seems like this is sort of like
He's the same age, by the way. He's only 6 months older than Kamala.
is he?
Yeah. And that's actually one of the memes or jokes that have been going around, actually, is that exact. The visuals look like he's 10 years older than her, but no, she's only 6 months older.
Well, regardless, if she wins the next two elections, then he's going to be ancient again. So, like, I think the VP should be younger than the president. If you want to
keep the,
I'd actually rather have a VP that has more experience than the current president. I'd rather have a president who's more vibrant and able to
interesting,
more
build faith and energy. Because the president has to be a leader. You want the people in his backing, though, and you want the crew that's really helping him make the decisions that he's actually making to be the experienced ones. The president is, at least as far as the personalities are voting for, you're voting for. I'm not voting for any of this.
That's an
my
interesting
interest. My interest dies. By the way, full disclosure, I stopped paying attention at the point where the numbers went back up in favoring Kamala over Trump. Past that, I don't care. But I feel like what you really want is, in the background, you want people with as much experience and as much embeddedness as possible. And it's on the front where you need somebody who appears young, and that's really what matters there. Like with Biden and Trump, like between the two of them, it's not that Biden is any more energetic than Trump is, really. It's that Biden looks and sounds like he's about to die, and Trump looks and sounds like he's about to die next year.
Yeah, and someone pointed out to me a long time ago there, but when it was still a Biden-Trump race, that it's not like we're actually voting for who's going to be the guard at the gate, right? It's also about that administration that's beneath them. So I think President Sunday makes an excellent point that, like, you know what, that vice president really does need to have their feet on the ground so that the president can go to the other countries and shake hands and stuff. Someone's got to stay home and do the work.
Well, and here's the interesting thing about Walz. So I would have preferred Kelly. Why? Because I am an ivory tower intellectual elite, and there's basically, I'm like, okay, he's an astronaut, so that's almost like the top of the elite. But the problem is, all those people are already going to vote for. I'm already going to vote for the ivory tower elites are already going to vote for. Walz goes hunting. He has been pro Second Amendment. He is still somewhat pro Second Amendment, but with significant caveats. And so he's shown also that he can change his views, but he has been very popular, and he has won in his district is highly conservative, and he's won in that district repeatedly. So what you've got now is a vice presidential candidate who can draw from the middle where people are more concerned about things that I personally am not. Kamala doesn't need to worry about me. She needs to worry about the undecideds, and he can reach a segment of the undecideds. She absolutely cannot, nor could
Yeah.
Kelly, nor could anyone else. And because he actually seems to have a pretty decent personality and is willing to take some dirty shots in ways that everybody finds funny, they're like, oh my God, you know, here's a Democrat that's actually got some balls on him. And I think that's going to appeal to, we're always talking about the middle in the U.S. There's a portion that's always going to vote right, and there's a portion that's always going to vote left. So the question is, how much of the middle is up for grabs? And he just brought a huge amount up there.
Yeah, and for the people who thought that Biden was too conservative, Wallace is actually left of Harris. So he, I don't know, a lot of progressives are really excited about him.
In what
Yeah.
way?
So if anybody
Maybe you
didn't
can
know, like,
inform me about this.
what's that?
I said maybe you can inform me about this, Maya. In what way is he more progressive than Harris?
Oh gosh.
Well, one of the bills he signed was for free tampons in girls' washrooms in elementary school,
Free lunch for kids.
free lunch for kids, and also that tampon thing ended up also including the boys' washrooms as well, which really pissed off the right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
funny.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah,
Like, people said that. I was like, okay,
it's
who cares?
yeah, it's really like not an issue.
It's actually, and it's like, if the boyfriend's like, it could be the boy gets it for his girlfriend and being a good boyfriend, so it destigmatizes boys going in stores getting tampons for his girlfriend. This whole like, ooh, tampons are disgusting. It's like going to get toilet paper. People, get over it.
He and his wife also had what do you call it? Fertility issues. So he's very pro women's rights on like all fronts, including parental leave. Oh gosh, what's another thing? Yeah, and I think there's a number of people talking about how he's on gun rights. He used to be more pro-gun, but then something happened, and he's more like common sense gun reform. And not that Harris.
We're all just reading my chat right now. Sorry.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm not even. I actually haven't been, but
Oh, that's funny. They're all saying the same. No, it's all good. It's all
okay,
good.
yeah.
Well,
Well, I
that's
mean,
what I'm doing. I'm like, shoot, guys,
okay,
come on.
yeah.
help me.
His record is his record. So yeah.
So let's
Your chat's on point.
let's play some fantasy election results then. I kind of think it doesn't even really matter who's going to win at this point. What the question is, what happens after the winner's decided? Because I think the outcome is bleak regardless of who wins. Like I am generally scared. So I'm also in Canada, by the way. And I think President Sunday and I are going to be trying to hold up those border walls regardless of who wins.
If Trump wins, yes, I am.
Yeah.
I am gonna sneak. I'm gonna go in a tunnel, and I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I've already.
No, there will absolutely be underground railroads to Canada if Trump wins. Again.
But even if Biden or if Harris wins, like,
what is your
January
worst nightmare with
what's
that?
your? I mean, you sound like you're thinking Mad Max. So I'm just curious, like, what exactly are you?
Well, no, I mean that would be dramatic.
People
But you mentioned Civil War.
Well,
I don't think that's an
no.
impossibility.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
It's not
Wait,
that bad.
Maya, you think it's impossible?
A civil war, like
Yes.
yes.
Out of
State
curiosity.
government
physically
would
possible,
have
but I'm with
to-
Maya.
Yeah,
Because
state governments would have to declare war.
okay,
Right.
fair.
Yeah,
As
there's no
opposed to
way you don't get martial law, and they're not as smart as they think they are.
I think the
Six-
peaceful separation of states would be more likely than a civil war, and I don't think that's very likely at all.
Yeah, I mean, because what you're talking about is a bunch of rednecks like running out with their guns and trying to shoot anybody walking. I don't see it.
I mean, really? That one's not hard.
What if Trump wins and Project 2025 starts to actually become a thing that starts happening?
Well, yeah, okay, so then that would be different. Then you have government actually acting to hurt the people. And we've actually seen that work in the US, but that's not a civil war. That's more of a genocide.
Well, that would take congressional action. The
Mm,
president can't do that. Project 2025, I've read the measures, congressional action. The
mhm.
president can't do any of that stuff. So even if Trump wins, it requires them to have a filibuster proof in the Senate to.
No, I mean that, yeah, if we're talking about just Trump, no. But
Yeah.
it nothing in Project 2025 is just Trump. It's giving power to the federal government and the states. And the states have already shown that they're more than willing to act adversely to minority
state.
groups. Hmm?
Well,
What state? I
No,
mean,
he
we
said
no,
could
I,
start
I,
with
I didn't
said
ask
some
we could
that.
states.
start with Florida and Texas and go
I
from
said
there.
some. I said some states. I said some. But the
Yes.
thing with Project 2025, it requires congressional action. Some of it would require constitutional amendment, no matter regardless what the Heritage Foundation says. So it's not like they can say this is going to be the law within 180 days. They have to get all those measures passed. And I
I
don't
don't
see
I don't think they're relying on Congress for most of those for
it,
most
it
of
all
it.
requires congressional action. Yeah.
Well, I mean, part of it was like, banning abortion and limiting things like mifepristone. I don't
Requires congressional action.
it
I'm sorry, what is it that
hasn't.
requires congressional action?
Banning
The
abortion
measures
did
in
not.
Project 2025 to streamline the executive branch. So a lot of it's streamlining the congressional branch,
Yeah,
or the
it's
executive
trying to
branch
move all the
under the
power to the
president.
executive branch. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's all going to require executive action. That they can, or that's all going to require congressional action to streamline the executive branch. The president can't unilaterally streamline all the executive departments under the executive branch because all those departments are created under the by Congress. So it requires congressional action to do that. The president can't just unilaterally decide to do
No,
that.
no one's saying that the president is unilaterally doing anything. The president is putting people in the government and into position. And this isn't a president. I know everybody's saying it's Trump's Project 2025,
Parody.
but it's talking about the Republican Party, both at the federal level and the states. And they're already maneuvering to enact most of it. So, I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm thinking that Trump is this like, godlike.
Machiavellian,
Yeah, exactly. It's a Republican
It's Heritage
man.
Foundation, but
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 Republicans are falling in line with this. Republicans are falling in line behind it.
but
We're seeing this even on the state level.
most of it is about changing the executive branch. Most of
Mhm.
it is about changing the executive branch of the U.S. government, not the state government. So it's like a 912-page document, but it's about restructuring the federal government. I mean, if you go through the
It's
document,
not. It's
I mean, I have.
a lot of the actions that it's calling for is that, but it's not just that. And
Yeah,
I mean, we've had what do you call it? It's nothing, say nothing. The states are already maneuvering to gerrymander. And so getting a Republican House and Senate to line up behind Trump isn't that far-fetched either. I mean, so I don't want this to sound like it's a long shot. We just had this happen like 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, the Senate can't be gerrymandered. So, but the
I mean, the people who vote for them can be.
No, the Senate. How can the Senate be gerrymandered?
No, I don't think on the Senate side that argument is tenable because there's 2 senators per state, and the district is the
Well,
entire
we
state.
just lost Manchin, and we're not getting a Democrat back in that seat.
But that's not a gerrymander. That's state elections. It's statewide
Yeah.
re-elections.
What do
So
you
everybody
think
in the state
gerrymander?
votes for Senate
They don't. Where do you think gerrymandering occurs?
at the state.
Only in the House seats. It's
Yeah.
gerrymandering is the changing of congressional House districts by state. The Senate.
Okay.
Senator represents the entire
on the
state.
state
I feel like
level,
I feel like we're talking past each other a bit. Is gerrymandering
Right.
the term we want to use here, or
I don't
It's
think
called
it is.
I think that's a good
gerrymandering.
point.
I'm saying you can gerrymander to get to get Congress back. But I am concerned about. I don't.
Well, they
The
already
Senate is
run.
going to
They
be
already
the Senate's going to be
run
up in the air
Congress.
because we're losing a seat. We are losing a seat.
They already run the House. So you don't run the Senate, but the Senate isn't gerrymandered.
I
The
I don't think you're
I think
hearing me
Sunday
though.
we can. So is the question is how much influence let's assume Trump wins. I think the question is how much influence will he be able to garner to actually try to push that project through, assuming, as I do, that he in fact does support it instead of him having said that he doesn't. How much can he and his fellow Republicans actually put through? And that's, I think, a good question. As someone who has not read the document, I'm not prepared to answer that. Any thoughts, Olson, on that?
yeah, I mean, I don't. They would need a majority in the Senate. So right now, the electorate. I don't know if they're going to win the Senate. If the Republicans don't win the Senate, right now it's led by the Democrats. Then they're not going to get Project 2025 through the Senate. So
They have to get
it's
51
going to be a moot
because
point.
well, no, they don't. They need 50 because
They need
Oh,
50.
the vice
The
president.
the
tiebreaker.
vice president would be
Yeah, so,
Mr. Mr.
Tiebreaker.
Lazy Boy.
so right now it's
Under
49.
yeah.
Yeah, so right now there's 47 Democrats and 4 independents, and the 4 independents caucus with the Democrats. So the Democrats have 51 seats. Caucus
Well,
with 51.
How much of it can he just do by executive order? Because executive orders seem to have more power than has typically been wielded until recently. Recently, a lot of presidents, Bush, the last Bush, really undid a lot of legislation through just executive order and saying, okay, you've passed this law, but my interpretation of this law is the exact opposite of the way you've interpreted it. And then it ends up getting something that might get contested and go to the Supreme Court, which, while I think they're not pro 2025 plan, they are certainly not they're on the right. I mean, they're going to be a problem.
But they've always typically taken the intention of the legislative intention in mind when they make decisions. So they're going to look at the House records, the Senate records to see what the intent of the law is. And a lot of time, if the executive action changes the law significantly, then the judicial branch will say, no, your executive action is wrong. A lot of times, Congress says, we're going to create this department. Here's their mandate, typically, and then it's up to the executive branch to write all the administrative laws. So the executive branch hires a bunch of administrators to write all the administrative law, and they hire administrative justices, and they enforce all that law, right? It's not like all these laws that we have in this country are actually written by the legislative branch. Unfortunately, there's people that say, well, none of these should be enforceable, but that's not how our government works. So there is some leeway for the executive branch to change administrative law under the executive branch. So
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for Maya, I think her concern, and certainly something that I would be concerned about, would be more than that, more than the administrative level affecting agencies like any of the letter agencies, DEA, FBI,
Yeah.
FDA. More than that, which is already pretty significant. If a new healthcare law is passed, being able to say, okay, I interpret this law in such a way, which Bush had done repeatedly. I interpret this law in such a way, and then
Yeah.
essentially ignore the law. And if that goes to a regular Supreme Court, they may sit there and say, well, what was really the intent of the law, and can we allow the president to just basically by memo ignore it, or does he have to enforce this law? And
Well,
I would not trust this Supreme Court any more than if secularity.
I would.
I'm going to hope secularity did not mean what they. If that.
PC is the
You can
mod in the
throw, would be
chat
a good
as
way to end
he's
that
talking
sentence.
about.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to keep my mouth shut. No, I didn't say a
Exactly.
thing. You were saying.
I sort of would trust the judicial branch to follow the Constitution and to follow the historical record
This one?
in the
This-
House. And,
Can I
yeah,
ask you
The
why
same
though?
one
Because
that
right
just
now,
said that
two
the
of them.
president can do whatever they want and never go to jail for
Well,
it.
hang on.
that's not what they
that aside.
said. They never said the president could do whatever they want. That's not what
They
they
didn't.
said.
But let's leave that aside for a second. Let's assume it's not true. Two of them right now, at least, are currently being looked into for taking millions of dollars of undisclosed gifts. You don't think that's a little bit suspicious?
Yes. So they shouldn't be taking undisclosed gifts. I understand there's problems with that too, but talking about the president, I believe we should get rid of all immunities. I've been saying this for a long time. We should get rid of sovereign immunity. We should get rid of qualified immunity. We should get rid of diplomatic immunity. Immunity from the law breeds contempt of the law. My torts professor told me that back in law school, and I think it's a very there's some merit to that, and you could apply that to Trump. So as long as you're acting in your official capacity as president, and so that has to be shown in court that he wasn't acting.
But who has required that?
physical
Who has
capacity.
required that thus far, though? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I hate the message it sends, but who has required that kind of retroactive immunity thus far? This is actually, like, with the possible exception of Trump, who was actually in any particular danger of being prosecuted for anything? Because I just don't see it. Like, for me,
Nixon,
but he wasn't prosecuted, was he? He was just,
Well, they usually
no, he was in danger,
pardoned.
and then he was pardoned.
He was
but in
pardoned
office, he
by
was told if you don't
Ford.
resign, you're going to get impeached, and then you're going to go through. So he resigned, and
Yeah.
then he was pardoned. But
Reagan
other
was
than that, yeah.
pardoned. Reagan was pardoned. Nixon was pardoned. They pardoned the next president. The incoming president usually pardons the outgoing president.
I was being a smartass and probably stepped on what I think was a very good point by Sunday, which is, I think that, we've never had to really worry about it until now. That any one of those previous presidents did not commit criminal acts, the likes of which we are seeing now. Is that roughly the point you were
not
making?
really. The point
Okay.
I'm getting at here is like the imminent danger to me is not that a president might commit illegal acts. I think it's actually kind of part of the nature of the authority of the office that it kind of is expected to some degree, at least externally, to do that. I think the alarming thing to me, once again, is that you have a Supreme Court that is heavily ideologically stacked, that is accepting gifts, who are not disclosing those gifts, and whose judgment, therefore, you can't trust. Like, this is not a judiciary that has in any way, shape, or form the spirit of what a judiciary should have. Like, this is literally a bought and sold judiciary.
Has failed to recuse themselves from cases from which they are obviously, and in any other situation, would have been required to recuse themselves from. Thomas being the most obvious example.
Can you give an example of a bad ruling?
Chevron stands out. I mean, the one you just mentioned about the immunity is a big one. I mean, that's definitely not being done
Well,
for
how is
Biden.
their ruling false? So the ruling was correct.
What do you mean the ruling was correct?
If he was acting in his official capacity, that's what they sent it back to say. You have to show he was not acting in his official capacity.
Oh, in
Well,
order for you're not talking
No,
Chevron.
no,
You're
no.
talking,
It's a judgment. It's not correct or incorrect. The question is like what the consequences of that ruling are and what its motivation is. With the Chevron ruling, one of the serious dangers of that one is it allows a whole bunch of decisions that have been made by governmental bodies that are responsible, at least to some degree, to elected officials. It allows those to be now challenged by local justices and Supreme Court justices who are not responsible in any way, shape, or form to elected officials. So right off the bat, you have like a whole massive array of thousands of rulings and decisions with now no democratic input whatsoever. Like
Well, that's not what.
Like,
Well, my question really is: was it wrong on the law? What was the
Well, it would-
ruling that was wrong on the
but it's
law?
not. It's a
if you're asking, was it wrong on the
Was it error on the
Constitution? The
law?
issue is, but that's still up to interpretation, because the question is, can Congress? What they felt was that Congress was actually abandoning its role by saying we're going to set up an administration and just let them deal with it, when in fact Congress themselves should be dealing with it at the minutia level. And Congress is saying, no, we're setting up organizations and giving them the authority to do it themselves. And can Congress, quote, abandon the responsibility of doing it? And I don't see anything in the Constitution that says necessarily that they can or can't. It's up to interpretation, and it's because of that, and the justices acting in their role as interpreter, that the extreme views of a disproportionate number of justices is so concerning. The bar isn't was it wrong, or was it justifiable in terms of matching the Constitution. The question is, was it a ruling that, well, never mind.
it's the Supreme Court. Like by definition, there is no such thing as a wrong decision. They have the final decision. That's the point. So
it could be an error in the law. So if they're saying that under the Commerce Clause, I haven't read the ruling, so I'd have to read the ruling. That's why I'm asking. If there is an error in the law, if they're saying that Congress, if you want this power, you have to have a constitutional amendment. Is that what they're saying? Then amend the Constitution.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No,
but
no, what they're saying is.
Sorry, go on.
So what they're saying is that Congress is, in fact, of course, empowered to create agencies to do the administrative work. But the problem is that they are giving these agencies a broader breadth and depth of power than they should have, without getting into the minutia of what they actually can and cannot regulate. And each and every every FDA regulation, they're like, no, those regulations should be made by Congress. So this, in order to maintain the FDA regulations we have right now, Congress's paperwork would go up tenfold, and this Congress has gotten less done than any other one in history. So the question is, really, it's this gray area of how much can they be hands off versus they have to write the legislation themselves. Because if they have to write it all, what's the point in giving them the power to make the FDA or any of the three-letter agencies? They have that power, that's acknowledged. So the question is, how hands off can they be? And this court has just said, really not at all. If you want if the Federal Election Commission wants to say insider trading is illegal, Congress has to actually pass its own law saying that the Federal Election Commission can't do that. And it's like, well, then why even have it?
By the way, Skeptic Spin,
what makes the government work more to create law?
Well, I mean, okay, but I know you want to say, is it right or it's wrong? Congress has the ability to enact a law. So Sunday's correct. There is no such thing as right or wrong as it comes to interpretation. there has to be a goal, right? And usually our barometer is it working or isn't it working, or intention. So Congress's intent was to not think, to create an agency that would hire professionals to enact, to look at the things and to work in the best interest of the science, what's going to be most beneficial. And the Supreme Court's interpretation was, no, you personally do it, even though you're not qualified to know, all these things in, biology or, what climate change or any other things. You can't defer to professionals or experts. You have to do it yourself. And a lot of people like us are saying, well, that's not in the best interest of the people. And, therefore we consider the ruling to be bad.
No, I understand. I think I understand now. So they're saying there's not enough oversight in the administrative laws that this agency is passing congressional oversight in this agency. Is that what they're
You've got it
ruling?
largely correct. They framed it another way. Sorry, Sunday.
It's okay. Basically, what Chevron said was that it's not the business of the courts to overrule public decisions. So decisions that are rendered to a publicly appointed body to make a decision. So you're talking about like what is an acceptable? This is actually the original context of Chevron. What is an acceptable framework for deciding when a facility like a factory or something has to go for a review process to see if alterations to it constitute like a relevant new source of pollution, say stuff like that. This was actually against leftists at the time and environmentalists who were like, hang on, no, you can't just treat this as, because originally what it was under Nixon, which is where this all came about. The EPA set it up so that if you made an alteration to your factory, you replaced a piece of machinery, whatever, you had to submit this to a lengthy review process so they could make sure that, all things considered, your pollution is not exceeding whatever. Under Reagan, this was switched up so that it was any alteration to the factory as a whole, not a single piece of machinery. If on balance, the company decided the pollution was the same, they didn't have to submit it to review. Stuff like that. Environmental activists protested this. A local court ruled in their favor. They took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided that no, this is not an appropriate. A local court should not be deciding against the EPA's decision. And what's happened here is, after years and years and years and years of decisions being made by such bodies, now all of a sudden, it is now being that is being reversed, so that local courts, some schlub who got into office based on who they're buddies with, is now able to make decisions with wide-reaching implications for a very large number of people, and throwing a whole lot, like an unfathomable amount of legal precedent into chaos. So that's the problem. Is it's tremendously it's a demonstration of extremely poor judgment with a partisan aim. It's not a matter of it being like, in some sense, inconsistent with the metaphysics of American law. It's that this Supreme Court is demonstrably corrupt and stupid on multiple levels.
Yeah. Well, I've seen them overturn past precedent, and it's sort of shocking to me to see them do that with like Roe v. Wade. I didn't ever think they'd overturn Roe v. Wade. I think they would like eat at the, like they did with the Casey v. Anthony and all those other cases after that. Not Casey v. Anthony, Casey v. doesn't matter. The Casey case. There's other cases that limited. Casey Anthony was the person who was like charged with a crime in Florida.
Is that Casey and Planned Parenthood?
Casey v. Planned Parenthood. Thank you.
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I was forgetting that too. I was like, I know that one. Okay.
But
So hold
well,
on one sec.
I thought I'd
Ozian.
see more of that, but it just went off. They overturned it entirely. I didn't think they would ever do that.
Yeah, so Nick needs to leave us here, so I just want to give Nick an opportunity to thank me for having him on. No, I'm just joking. Nick, why don't you let us know if you got anything going on this week and where people can find you on the YouTubes and at the supermarket.
Thank you so much, Maya, for having me on. And you can find me on In Time. That's youtube.com/InTimeShow. We're a news and educational program, and we've been doing Downtime with Commander Lance McMillan. We're going to be doing that on Thursdays, every Thursday night. We haven't quite settled on a time yet, and we do breaking news, and we're going to be starting up our sort of news rundowns, weekly news rundowns. Those will be starting up pretty soon. So I hope you guys will come join us for that. But other than that, I've had a blast. It's been great to see all of you. And, I hope you have a great rest of your show. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your support in my my restarting of a YouTube endeavor. And this has been a fine chat. So hopefully we'll have you back soon.
And sorry,
anytime, let me know. I'd be delighted.
All right.
Okay. See you, Nick.
By the way, Skeptic Spin, thank you for the 20 gifted memberships. However, if you were trying to buy my mercy for the future, I'm afraid you're missing a couple zeros.
Well,
you'll all be shocked to know that Titan. Sorry,
yeah,
I was like, you'll all be shocked to know that Titan is also a mod on In Time.
What?
Yeah.
Double crossing traitor. What the hell?
Yeah, Titan has been fantastic for this last little while and pushing me to get some things done, and their support has been amazing, as well as all of your supports as well, and the support of both chaps right now. I'm already getting subs from it, and that's all I'm really here for, is to build a channel, have some intelligent discourse.
That's what it's all about. Money. I see.
Money.
I have never kept it a secret that I'm coming from entertainment, and I'm starting with it from a level of entertainment first, because if I can grow from that, then I can reach a wider audience, and then I can have lovely people like you guys on to spread the word, as it were.
Well, since Nick dipped out first, I'm going to take the opportunity to chat. Make sure you subscribe to Skeptic Spin is the channel, the one I'm sending you to, because this was my audience preferred this to the panel I was on yesterday by a large margin.
Awesome. That's great.
They're loving
and
it.
I hope they don't mind that it was a Canadian that hosted it. But truth
you shouldn't have told them that. You should have just kept that to yourself. Just general rule. Just keep that to yourself as a Canadian.
Well, and then I'll do the Canadian thing and just be, I'm sorry. But I mean, I don't remember who it is that said it, but America is like a sleeping elephant, and if it rolls over, well, yeah, the American election is pretty important too.
Well, if it rolls over, it's a good thing there's nothing here. So,
right.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Cheerio.
See you, President Sunday. Thank you so much for coming out. Why don't we just continue the wraps up from there with? So let's go next, Maya. What do you got going on this week? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Maya Atkinson right here. We go live every week at 9:30 Eastern to 11:30 Eastern. And I do believe Sunday's raided me once, which was a really good raid. And tomorrow,
another reason I want to get those subs up. I want to start raiding people. Anyways.
Yeah. And so we take a comedic approach to discrediting bad science information on the internet.
Awesome.
I think of your
and taming weasels. And if anyone doesn't get the reference, you're just gonna have to go watch. Maya. Wow, we just got raided by President Sunday too, actually. So, yeah. So while you're here, everybody, hit that subscribe button, because I've got shows booked out the wazoo. I spent last weekend at BajaCon, which means I made some connections, and I'll tell you who I got coming on here in just a moment. But first, Ozian, what do you got going on over at Matters Now?
We do after shows for debates. We've been hosting a bunch of debates on Matters Now about religion, Science, when I say science, I say that loosely. People that deny like moon landing, going to the Earth being flat, stuff like that. So sort of fun stuff. Morality, politics, economics, and stuff like that. So come check us out at Matters Now. And then we run a show called Tell Me That Story, where we have an atheist and a Muslim every week come on and talk about different various stories. I think last week they did one on Sufi stories. So it's pretty good. And come check us out. If you want to come do a debate, you can come find my information on at Matters Now and find me on X, stuff like that. Send me a message and we can do a debate or something like that. I know Justin wants me to debate Mark Reed on gun control, but he's an Australian.
Yeah.
Well,
He should debate the watch frog.
all right. Well, while we've got an audience here, let me just let you guys know that I do some shows over here as well, not just panels with discussion. I have this inner Jimmy Kimmel that I like to let loose whenever possible. And so with that, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be on Bridge the Divide on the Stage of Reason with JL. And we're going to be doing some more politics and religion stuff, I guess. But, you know, a little bit more talking with people who are going to come into the Discord and see what they think and how they feel. Later that evening, I have, let me see here. I have this gentleman right here, John Gleason, coming on Skeptic Spin with my co-host, Spin Dr. Mike. If you guys don't know who John Gleason is, then you should go over to the line and subscribe there. And also Godless Engineer. And next week, I have Mr. Anderson with David Fitzgerald, the atheist author, coming on. And we're going to have some fun and discuss some topics. And other guests I got down the line, I've already booked The Friendly Atheist, and it's coming up in September. So if you guys are familiar with any of those lovely people, you're going to have to hit that subscribe button down below, because this is my build up coming out weekend. I've got 3 events. This one, the Bridge the Divide tomorrow, and then my own little show in the evening. And I need all the support I can get, because I got to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can start rating people like Ozzy and Maya and President Sunday and Nick.
Yeah, I need to get to 1,000 too. So except to Maya.
You got to go over to Maya too, because then she can raid me, and that'll be great.
That would be cool. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks everyone for giving us your attention on a Saturday night, no less. And we're all grateful, and we'll just wave our hands and smile as I hit this little button here and wish you all a good night.
Good night, everyone.